welcome to the Good Girl Confessional Podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional Podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and over who want a little bit of extra in their life. You can join us and all the fun and our community at wb40.com. Today in the Confessional, I'm so thrilled to be talking to two amazing women, Natalie and Lisa Saunders, who together own Your Health Collective. And they are all about a holistic view and taking care of women who are going through the Peri Menopause and menopause experience. You know, there's a number of us out there who are. I really love that they have a holistic view around this. These girls are really passionate about changing the way workplaces as well view our journey with perimenopause and menopause. Please welcome to the Confessional, Natalie and Lisa. Hello, Nat and Lisa. Welcome to the Confessional. How are you girls today?
We're great. Thank you, Sandy. Hello.
Hello, Sandy. We are going really well.
That's great. I should have worn my clear glasses. I see both of you have got yours on.
I know. You know what? We do get mistaken for sisters, actually. So any wonder?
I can see why, though. I am so excited to have you in the Confessional today. Thanks for joining me. I was just laughing with you girls, you know, before we started recording that it's been a big week of tech issues. So let's just hope things go smoothly today. That will be amazing.
Yeah, and I think if the last 2 years has taught us anything, it's about being agile with technology, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to both of you about your incredible business, which is Own Your Own Health, which I love. It's a collective, Own Your Own Health collective. But first of all, what I really wanted to chat with you both about is this beautiful friendship that you have, because I've had a number of guests on recently who have been really close friends and then started a business, or they've started a movement, or they've started whatever, which is amazing. I love the idea of sisterhood, and we talk about it a lot over here at WB40. So tell us about your friendship and how it came to be that you ended up working together.
Well, Nat, do you want me to take this one, or do you want to head off?
Go on, Lisa.
Okay, so we actually met through a mutual friend, Sandy, and this mutual friend, her sister-in-law is Natalie's brother's wife.
Wow. Okay.
Is that right, Nat? Yeah. So she went along to this evening thing at this person's house, and she came home and she rang me. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and she said to me, "I've just met this girl. You need to speak to her. You need to connect with her." And I said, "Oh, what's her name?" She said, "Natalie Moore." I said, "You know what? Her website popped up in my feed the other day, and I was having a look, and I thought, I need to connect with her." She goes, "Oh, you need to do it. You need to do it." So the next day or so, I reached out to Natalie and I was looking, you know, I'm a really good friend of this person, and do you want to catch up? So Natalie and I caught up and started catching up sort of every 6 to 8 weeks as a bit of because we had our own respective businesses then, and it was a bit of a buffer, and, you know, to bounce things off each other about what we're doing in our business and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, the connection was probably there right from the start. And so eventually we sort of did a few things, and then we said, you know, why don't we do a joint thing? So we did this Own Your Health for Women Expo in March or April 2019. And you know, we worked so well. We were like-minded with, you know, where we wanted to take our businesses, and it was great. We had like 12 exhibitors, 65 people came, 4 guest speakers. It was awesome, and we were buzzing, you know. And so after that, we thought, you know, why don't we get serious about this and look to start bringing our businesses together? And that's how Own Your Health Collective was born. And we've been working together ever since. So that's the long and short of it. Nat, did I miss anything?
No, I was just going to say too, I guess, just to paint a picture from my perspective, you know, having worked in my own business for a couple of years prior to meeting Lisa, I was always on a hunt for, you know, a network of women, you know, and I was reaching out to women who had started businesses at the same time, and we just would catch up. And, you know, a few I had built a friendship with, but I was just looking for someone or a group of women that I could really connect with. And, you know, you put out, you get back what you put out. And, it was just impeccable timing that, Lisa and I met, and we were able to, really talk. And we had very similar passions and visions and, similar ethos and values. So, we came together very nicely and have continued that, professional and personal friendship, for a few years.
I love that. And so you're both coaches, right, which is fantastic. But what kind of led you on this journey to holistic health and coming together to create something for women in that space?
Yeah, well, I can jump in and talk from my perspective. So I had my daughter early 30s. I returned back to work, and I just remember thinking, is this it? Is this it? Do I spend my life juggling, stressed, overwhelmed? There has to be something more to this. And I really struggled with that, because here I was with a beautiful baby, and yet I was just feeling, almost dead inside. So I'm like, I'm not getting that fulfillment outside. I'm a very keen runner, and I always tell this story that I remember going to the toilet at my workplace, and I just remember saying, please, God, universe, give me a sign that there's something else out there to fill my soul. And I come up with this idea to start a business motivating other people to run and get healthy and look after themselves. And that was my first sort of iteration of a business. And then from there, it morphed into running goal-setting workshops. I then studied my health and wellness coaching. And I just loved being able to educate and guide people, and women in particular, on how to get healthy and live with a sense of passion and purpose. Because so many people would say to me, how are you finding time to work 4 days, run these little businesses, have a daughter and a family? And I just sort of thought, how do you not? I'm just like oozing with excitement because I'm setting these goals and I'm working towards these things, So, it was really just about that, I guess, that personal awakening and that real change and loss of self that really, encouraged me to make that change. And, here I am, I guess, 5 years later, with a broad set of skills, knowledge and experience, and just, love and so grateful for what I get to do.
That's great. What about you, Lisa?
Yeah. Look, I think for me, I hadn't really, so my previous corporate experience is in the property management and valuations area. And I was good at it, but I didn't love it. And I think as I was getting older and having children, I was falling more out of love with it, I suppose. And once I had my kids, always had that interest in health and food and nourishment. But once I had my boys, that was more heightened. And I went back to that work after having the boys, but the culture and the values no longer aligned with where I was at in my life. And so I started looking at options for me to take the plunge. And I think sort of really going back part-time, it was really, I was at conflict with it because it didn't give me the flexibility around my family either, and the flexibility about me looking after my health also. So in 2015, I also developed quite a bit of anxiety around that time, just through the pressure of just wanting to leave it. But, do I take the plunge? Because it's a big decision, obviously, in change of career, especially in my early 40s. And that led me to study food and health nutritional coaching. And and then I haven't really looked back. So it's just more in line with who I am. And, and it just allows me the flexibility to do what I want to around my family. But, and we, Nat and I always talk about the self-care element. And it's definitely, I think it's, a lot of women don't sort of have that, if I take that time out to look after me or follow something that I want to do, am I doing the right thing for everyone else around me? So, there's a lot of that's come into it as well, but I'm really happy doing what I'm doing.
I love it. I love that you both found your purpose, which was the same purpose, I guess, which is so great. There are a lot of women who I chat to, and our listeners talk about this a lot as well, which is great, that we get this feedback that this notion that women can do it all, the juggling of children and careers and, be a good wife or partner or whatever, and give yourself fully to your work, give yourself fully to your children. How do you girls manage that?
Yeah, and
I'm watching Lisa laugh because I think as someone who raised 3 children and worked nonstop, I often look back and laugh myself, like, how do we juggle?
Yeah, it is. And you know what? It is a juggle, but I think you also can come to a sense of peace with what you have in your days and how you feel your days up. And, I will say to people, I believe that we can do all the things that we want to do, but we have to define what that looks like for us in any given moment, and if there's things that we have to put on the back burner, so be it. It just means not for now. Let's just push them away. But let's still do things that make us feel good. So I'm a very big believer in living life to your values and really knowing what's important to you, and in particular, what's important to you, your personal values, and choosing things that are going to help you make decisions that support you. If I can share, as women and mums, we tend to always think about our family, and our family will be our top value. But I always say, is having family your top value going to support you in making decisions to support yourself? And probably not, because we all, family's there, we do everything to support the family. And if we can sort of flip our perspective on that and say, you know what, if I've got these top 3 values that are my personal values, they're going to help me look after me, I can see that the flow and effect is going to go to my family. Because what I do for me is going to help me show up and be the woman, mother, wife I want to be for my family. So that's probably my big tip is values, really prioritizing and, just doing things that you want to do, setting some boundaries. We're very good at the shoulds, and I always say, shoulding all over yourself. It's about really just embracing you and doing life as you want to do life.
And, just to move on from that too, I've got 2 little hashtags that I'm constantly saying to myself: happy mum, happy sons, happy wife, happy life. And I think, and that's not to say that I'm perfect and every day goes beautifully as planned. Sometimes it all just goes to shit, basically. And I've had a few weeks like that recently. But I think that, exactly what Nat's saying is that we've got to give ourselves that time for that self-care and to look after ourselves. And especially those values are really important. And in fact, we were just talking about this morning that, feedback that we're having through, we've got this menopause quiz that we do, and women are saying they want, a happy family but not all that family stuff, but there's nothing coming back about what they want for them and how they can make themselves, just be more at peace with themselves. And, and there's some days that you're not going to be able to tick everything off on your list and things like that. But we've got this expectation around ourselves that we should be doing, like bringing up what Nat's saying, that we should be doing all these things for everyone else, but where's the should that you should be doing or know that you actually should be doing for yourself as well? So definitely all around that.
That's great. And what I love about all of that, as well as you say, we can put everything in place, but it's okay too that we do have weeks where it does all fall to shit. And you just go, okay, let's pick up the pieces and what am I going to do differently moving forward, right? Because, everyone used to say to me, oh my God, you're so organized. How do you get everything done? How do you fit it all in? And I still get asked that a lot even now, even though my children, have grown up. I don't have to juggle small children anymore. But once a mum, always a mum, right? So, but the reality is, I think you're right. I think it is. And I think Nat really explained that beautifully about knowing your own values. What are your values? Who are you? What matters to you? And I guess too, as we get older, ladies, we get to this stage where we sort of say, I can no longer just keep living outside of my values, because you find yourself just really resistant to certain things. Do you think that's true?
Definitely. I think it is, because again, we try and live to everybody else's expectations of us. And, there's got to come a point in time where, we come home to ourselves. We use that term a lot, coming home to ourselves and coming home to what we need, because at the end of the day, the kids are going to grow up and they're going to go off and live their life. And, you know, it's about setting those foundations early. You know, I always liken it to, you know, like your relationship with your partner. You know, we're so invested in the kids and everything's about the kids, but it's also where do we find things that we can do together to enjoy? Because obviously, yeah, when the kids leave the nest, you know, what have we got without the kids? So it's, you know, it's a similar thing that we've got to do that on an individual basis too.
And you know what else I also find too? It's the habits that you've grown up with that, you know, that really shape your life. And as you get older, like for instance, right, when I was growing up, every Saturday morning we got up from a Maltese background and you cleaned your room, we cleaned our bathroom, we did all these things, right? And so then I took that with me, obviously, when I got married. So it's like, oh, you know what? I don't have to clean my house today. I don't have to do X, Y, Z. But they shape and form, and that gives you a lot of stress. It's like, oh, I'm not ticking off the boxes. I'm not getting that usual thing done. So, but it's, my point here is it's okay to go out of the norm and what you've been used to and change it round. So, you know, clean the house is an example. But there's so many things that we do from a habit-forming point of view that shapes how we think or should be doing, and it's okay for that to change as well. It's like, and it's quite liberating. Like, I sort of think, you know what, I haven't got time to clean the bathroom today. That can wait till tomorrow. Or I haven't got time to do X, Y, Z. And it's just acknowledging that that's absolutely fine and there's no one's expectation but your own expectation around doing that. And I know that's, you know, I'm constantly having a big battle within around what I should be doing and what I know I actually can accomplish, or, you know, what's going to set me up that day.
And what you touched on there is so great too, because as women, we feel selfish if, you know, ridiculously, there's a lot of this kind of shame that happens for women that we should be in servitude, we should be serving others, we should be looking after everybody else, but don't worry about yourself. Which, you know, as we all know, that if we're not taking care of ourselves, we basically burn out and then we have nothing left to give anyone else, right? We don't show up as our best selves. So I was having a conversation the other day on this podcast, actually, with two other ladies, talking about the juggling phenomenon. You know, one of the things that they brought up, which it was Lisa and Sarah from those two girls, what's really a great point that they made, and also I've had Mia Northrup on here from Life Admin Hacks. One of the things that all of them had sort of said was it's okay to actually outsource as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think we, you know, why do we worry about that sort of stuff? Why do we worry about saying, you know, oh, I've got a cleaner, or someone comes to wash the dog, or someone, you know, walks my dogs, or I don't know, whatever it may be. You know, what do you think about that in terms of changing our mentality around that?
Yeah. Do you know what? I have to laugh when you say that, because I remember when I started my business and I was like a sponge learning so much, and, you know, and I was putting my daughter in daycare, right? And I remember listening to someone say, you know, where can you outsource? And I thought, I haven't got the money to outsource this and that as part of my business. You know, I've got to do it. And then, you know, they said, you probably outsource your kids to childcare. And I'm like, yes, I do. And that really changed my whole perspective about outsourcing, because, yes, you know, again, it was my priority to be in the business so my daughter can go to daycare for the day. But I didn't look at that outsourcing perspective from the business point of view. But I totally agree. You know, we can only work within the time that we have. And, of course, we have to make time for the things that we want to do. And outsourcing, so be it. You know, it's letting go, and Lisa touched on that before, those belief systems. You know, we are so entrenched with belief systems that we've had throughout our entire life, and they follow us until we actually say, you know what, I'm going to change that. And that's the beauty of the brain and the research coming out about the brain. We can create new neural pathways and create new belief systems so that we do actually, you know, take action towards things and work the way we want to work. So all for out.
And, you know, and there's such a guilt associated with letting go. And I think it's so liberating when you think, you know, like everyone else, I just want to basically do this for myself, and it can give me more time to do your work, catch up with, you know, friends, girlfriends, parents, you know, especially on the back of COVID and lockdowns. One thing that I lost an uncle a few weeks ago, and he's like my first immediate uncle that I've lost. And it really resonated with me because I thought, my God, I've hardly been spending any time with my parents. Just, I used to drop over before COVID and have that cup of tea with them in the morning once a week and things like that. So it's okay to do those things that you haven't normally done, or, a little bit of your work goes by the wayside. So you can do those things. It's just that guilt associated with actually foregoing it. It's been really powerful actually for me.
Yeah. And, you've just touched on something else that is huge for women, especially in this age demographic, of we are the sandwich generation of caring for children, and also caring for children or building a career, because not everybody's a mum, not everybody wants to be a parent, but looking after elderly parents. And I think, I remember my kids were teenagers, my parents were aging, my dad had Alzheimer's, my mum was a disabled woman, and that working full time and juggling kids. And at that stage, I'm divorced. So you're sort of juggling it as a single parent for the first time, and all of those things. But that is a common story. My story is not unusual. But it is that we're in the sandwich generation. And on top of that, we're in the sandwich generation, and quite a lot of our listeners will be going through perimenopause and menopause, which adds a whole other layer to that. And so I guess touching on that, what's some advice that you have for women to kind of, as you say, let go? Like, does it really matter if your laundry's piled up for a couple of days, but you're seeing your parents, or does it really, you know what I'm saying? So what's your advice to women on that, just letting go a little bit?
Look, I mean, from that perimenopause point of view, Sandy, one of the biggest things that we're seeing, and Nat might want to expand a little bit more on this, is the stress associated, coming out of the back of where we've been the last 2 years. And I find that really important because that whole stress factor really has a big bearing on things like our adrenals. And our adrenals are really important, obviously, especially as we're heading perimenopause and menopause, because we've got this decrease in estrogen happening, and our adrenals actually take over that smaller estrogen production as we're heading into menopause. So things like stress are really, really important, that we really dampen that and have strategies to actually deal with supporting them, and things like nourishment and sleep. Moving into perimenopause and menopause is really important that your nourishment's really there to be able to support the change of what's happening in your body. But Nat, do you want to talk more about the stress and what you're seeing through the yoga and your one-on-ones that you're doing with clients, just to add to that a bit more?
Yeah, what I'm seeing lately in particular is that build-up of stress coming from our thoughts, having so much in our head, juggling so much. And, but I guess on the flip side of that, women have come to see me because they want to try and clear their mind. So I feel like there is a bit of an awakening at the moment. And maybe that has been the silver lining for the last 2 years, that, we've had to slow down. Now all of a sudden we're back at full speed, and probably I say full speed times 1,000 at the moment. But there's a bit of an awakening there to understand, I want to clear my mind. I want to slow down internally. And, for me and, a lot of the research and other experts we speak to, it's really about coming back into your body and, mindfulness, meditation, yoga. And, I completely appreciate that people trying to do a yoga session or meditation is tricky in particular. So I'm very big about helping people. Where can you be mindful? I had a client the other week, who again her mind was all over the place, and she said, I just don't know how to bring mindfulness into my life. And then at the end of a few weeks of working with her, she said, I'm in the shower now, and that's my time. And I just close my eyes and I just let the water come down my body, and I breathe, and I'm having that mindful moment. And so that's where it's really important. Work with the time that you have. Don't try and squeeze an hour yoga session. Don't try and force yourself to do yoga if you're not there. Find ways that you can bring that sense of mindfulness. And I would liken those moments to, having a minute of breath work, a minute of just being still and having some silence. Because Yeah, we are so busy. We're always on autopilot. We've got that default thinking. I always say that, our thoughts are on recycle. So you're having the same thoughts as you had yesterday, as you did last year. Finding that time to really come back into yourself so that you can hear the whispers of your body, feel the sensations, actually tune in to what is happening. We don't ever give ourselves the moment to really stop and internally feel our body.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Sandy, too, you mentioned before about this notion about us, having it all, but wanting to, that we can have it all. And I think, Nat and I have had lots of conversations about this too, and you mentioned about showing up as your best self. And I think that's probably more, who that best self is for you that you're comfortable with, not the notion that you can do everything and go at 1,000,000 miles an hour and then you experience this burnout, and how that sort of goes, plays into your physical, your mental, your emotional, spiritual health, which is what our business is built on. It's just who your best self is, how comfortable you want to be. And I think at the end of the day, that's probably the key thought process that you're comfortable with, and no one else's expectation, but just your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess, to add to that as well is that things like, as you say, trying to find those moments of mindfulness. One thing that I've learnt over many years, I'm now in my 50s, is that meditation, I've done meditation on and off for many years, but one thing I had to learn was meditation doesn't need to be your mind's completely clear. In fact, unless you're some extraordinary yogi, that's highly unlikely. But it's really about just being in the moment, in that self, just listening to your breath and just really, as you say, centering yourself a little bit and coming back to yourself. But I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves when we talk about mindfulness. As you said, a lot of people don't really know what mindfulness is. A lot of people don't really understand meditation, so therefore there's a lot of resistance. Like when I tell people I meditate on and off, they say, oh, I can't do that, I've tried, it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? So I think that we do have a lot of blocks as well because we don't really understand, well, what is mindfulness?
Yeah, I agree completely. And so many people say to me, I just can't shut my mind off, I can't stop thinking. But just to give you some statistics, the average adult has about 70,000 thoughts a day. So that is the way our brain is meant to work. So every 1.2 seconds, we've got a new thought. And mindfulness or meditation, it's not about shutting out the thoughts. It's about actually seeing our thoughts. There's a lot of meditations that guide us to almost look at our thoughts as like clouds just floating by, and just seeing those thoughts and saying, where's that thought coming from? Is that even my thought? So it helps us to sort of decipher our thoughts and really clear our mind in that sense. Say, hang on, no, that's a ridiculous thought. I'm not even thinking that. That's someone else's belief system that they've put on me. And now, I'm thinking that. So as you can tell, I'm fascinated by meditation and mindfulness because I just think it's a real superpower. And I have to say, as a teacher, people look to me and think that I'm, could just do meditation like that. But when I started, probably 10 years ago, I was meditating for 1 minute because I couldn't stop longer than that. And I always say to people, just 1 minute, just wake up in the morning and breathe. And it's about building that consistency. So setting yourself that habit. So, 7 o'clock when I wake up, I'm going to meditate for a minute. And then as you start to get used to that, okay, let's extend it out. I'm going to try 5 minutes, And so, it's about habit creation. But mindfulness is about seeing your thoughts and seeing whose thoughts are they? Where are they coming from?
And it just gives you just that little bit of breathing space and clarity sometimes, especially when we've all got a million decisions we need to make on a daily basis. And whether that's in life, whether it's in business, whether it's about your kids or your friends or your family or whatever it may be, I think, or what electricity company am I going to go with? I don't know, whatever your thing is. But we all have those things that we have to think about. And I think just being able to clear your mind, even just a few deep breaths and being in that moment, for me sometimes helps me to think, oh, okay, it's not as chaotic as I think this whole decision-making thing is, and I can do it. And, as business owners, just I'm a business owner just as you girls are, that you do make a lot of decisions on a daily basis, and quite often, you're just thinking off the cuff all the time. So for me, I find just having that few deep breaths really, really does help. I wanted to talk to you about obviously the Own Your Own Health Collective and how this started, because it's a beautiful business, and you really tell us what your aim for women is in having the collective, and what are the benefits for women to come into the collective.
Go on, Nat.
So we've actually...
Nat always does this so succinctly. I'm not going to take what I leave out of her book here.
So we've just moved into our own physical health hub in East Keilor in Melbourne, and this was a bit of a vision for us pre-2020, but we won't talk about that. And so really for us, when women come into that health hub, we want them to open the door and step inside and actually be committed to nurturing themselves in that moment. So they let go of what brought them there, let go of their to-do list. They're purely there in their moment, nurturing themselves, whether that's with, me with health and wellness coaching or yoga, or if it's with Lisa through nutrition, or, we've got a massage therapist and Reiki crystal healer also. But it's about carving out that time. And this is, as much as it's our space, it's their space too. And further to that, we just want to really change the perspective and awareness of women's health, in particular menstrual and perimenopause health, and really help women, that we can define what it looks like. We can choose to feel the way we want to feel, and there's, things that we can do with our body and support our body to choose and define what this phase of life really looks like for us.
That's great. So touching on the perimenopause and the menopause, because it's such a huge issue for a lot of women. We all go through it. This is a biological thing. I don't really understand why it's meant to be taboo. Over here at WB40, as you know, we shout it from the rooftops. We talk about it all that time. And I love having guests on that really support women through the perimenopause and menopause journey, because a lot of women have no idea what is going to happen until we're in it. There is not a huge amount of information out there pre-going through this stuff. So tell us a little bit about that and how you both sort of, I guess, in your space came to support women going through that journey.
So we started off really looking at health and wellness from a general point of view, and started to realise that, hang on, there's something here that sets men and women apart from the way that they function and learn and work and all those type of things. And that sort of led us down to that menstrual health piece, which then led us down to that perimenopause piece. And I'm almost 52, so I'm smack in it. And so we started to look at that a little bit more and realised that, there's, like you've touched on it, we don't have that education growing up. And in fact, over in the UK, they're probably about 5 years ahead of us, and they've just recently started including menopause education in the school curriculum, which is like amazing. So we really need to, we're quite a champion for, really looking at trying to help along with that. And that just led us through to really the ebbs and flows that women can function upon day to day, and using that as their superpower to be able, through menstrual health, we have different cycles through the month or phases through the month where we'll have more energy, we'll eat differently, we'll move differently. And then we head into perimenopause, and, you start getting that perimenopause period, because our periods, we menstruate differently during that time. But for a lot of women, they think, I've normally been so regular, what's going on here? And then they start feeling different things, a bit of anxiety, which is what it started with me, lots of mood changes, but they don't know what's happening. So we're really around that education from a one-on-one point of view and helping women through that time, but also in the corporate space, working with corporates around supporting women in the workplace. And look, I read an article this week that Harper's Bazaar have put out, and there was talk around that whole HRT in the 80s. Women went on it, and then we had this big scare, which now, if you have a look at the evidence, there's a whole lot of misconception around that. But women were taking HRT back in the 80s, and it was all fine and everything, and then we had this scare, and they stopped it. And and what's happened is a lot of women went underground about how they're feeling, and they weren't talking about it. But where Nat and I come from is not, obviously there's a place for HRT and MHT, but it's all around those lifestyle factors that we can be doing to help us and help women through that time in their lives. And it starts early. It starts in that menstrual years about, having some good supports around that physical, that mental, that spiritual, that emotional, that which I touched on before, that takes you into those perimenopause and menopausal years. Because in actual fact, we're going into those perimenopause plus years on a low base, because a lot of us have had women, we've breastfed, we've led stressful lifestyles. So if we don't have that base to start off with and education around that, that's when we find a lot of women are really struggling, and that's where we can really support them. Did I answer your question properly?
You sure did. No, you sure did. And I think that's the thing. I find it really fascinating. I was saying this to someone the other day, that my mum was a fierce, little feminist, and she talked about sex and nothing was taboo in our house. But the one thing she really didn't discuss was menopause. And a friend of hers did tell me once that that's because she breezed on through. So the rest of us were suffering and she breezed on through. I think that stuck in my head that then I would as well. Why wouldn't I? That's my mum. And of course, by the time I hit menopause, my mum's passed away. And so I couldn't really go to her and say, what was going on? What was the deal? So I just sort of, as I said, I don't think I really bothered to explore it, worry about it until I was in it and discovered that, unlike my mother, I did not just breeze on through. But I like that you girls have a very holistic view. So I myself am on HRT. I tried a lot of natural things first. I was really struggling through this process. Spoke to my brilliant doctor, who's gorgeous, and said no one should be suffering through this. And so I started the HRT. But I do believe it has to be a holistic view of what is going on for women. So I love that you touched on that. For those that don't kind of really understand what you mean by holistic, do you want to maybe touch on that and the things that you offer to the women that you support?
Yeah, and if I could just add something too, we hear from clients so often that, they go and have so many different appointments with different doctors, and we definitely don't take away from doctors and the role that they play, but it's looking for that information. They're just not getting that information as to, all the answers that they're looking for. And so where we come at it from a holistic perspective, and we like to say holistic with a W, so really encompassing that whole element of us. So it starts, and we've got a framework actually, so it starts with the self in the middle. So, who you are, your biology, your physiology, and then, what makes us is our mental health, our physical, our emotional, and our spiritual health. And so we show our clients this framework, and we get them to talk to us about, where are you, nurturing yourself across these pillars, and maybe where's one that you're perhaps not. So, for example, physical, we know physical health really well, food, eat, movement. We know mental health because that gets a lot of airplay as well. But, where are you in terms of your spiritual health? Are you living with that sense of fulfillment, those values? Do you know your character strengths? Are you working to those things that help support you and live life the way that you want to live? So we really amalgamate, everything that makes us. And that's why Lisa and I have, I guess, so passionate about our business, because we come together with very complementary skills and experience. And our message has just always been, making healthy simple again by coming back to the whole you. And again, our framework's got the circles where they all join together, because, if we're nurturing, say, our emotional health, well, that feeds into our spiritual health. That supports our physical health. And but it's looking at, that on a full scale, and then breaking it down, saying, okay, well, where's one thing that perhaps I'm not nurturing, and what can I do in that area? And that's what we do through our coaching and our various classes and workshops that we run.
Beautiful. And, you know, you've got the physical space now, which must be so lovely, as you said, coming out of 2 years of COVID, to be able to have people come in and do yoga and to connect and to coach face to face. Has it made a huge difference to the business?
Yeah, it has. It's given that opportunity for people to be in the company of others. And we ran our first retreat on the weekend, and, you know, I asked them, you know, what brought you here? And it was that connection, you know, and one of the ladies said, any opportunity I've got to be in a physical space with other people, supporting myself, I want to take it, because I want to be around other people. You, Lisa, are you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Women are craving that connection, and you know, I think there's a little bit of hesitation about going out. So it's happening slowly, but they're getting more confident about coming out and connecting. And even in our networking events that we run once a month, you can definitely see that connection and community happening. And women are thriving off talking to each other and getting help. You know, often in these events we'll say, you know, put a problem out there, and it's everyone has to almost put up their hand to say, oh, you know, I can help you with that. So, and that's what the retreat's about that we're doing. The retreats are about that connection and really that self-care that we keep banging on about. But that whole self-care factor. So often, I don't know about you, but, you know, I love the idea of going away for a retreat on the weekend or something like that. But there's so much you have to do in the lead up to getting out, especially if you've got a family. And even though my husband would say, oh, no, I can manage it all, I'm thinking, nah, you're going to eat crap the whole weekend. I'm making sure there's meals there and there's veggies there in the fridge and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, you can actually have 4 or 5 hours away on the weekend and just relax for that. And I think that's what really came through on the weekend too, is just being able to stop and making it easy for women. And what we're planning with these retreats is once a month, and we'll have different guest speakers that are coming in and really focus on that, especially that 40-plus woman who just wants some education, some relaxed rest, self-care to be able to look forward to it each time, each month.
It's super exciting that you started retreats. Like, I love that. And I do love the idea of it being like a one-day retreat rather than, you know, a lot of retreats, as you say, require you to go away for 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a week. And for a lot of people, that's just not feasible. So I really love that. And so what has been the buzz around the one-day retreat so far?
Yes, I have to say, when we did our retreat in the beginning, we had it all set up, and I hugged Lisa and I'm like, Lisa, this was one of our goals from the very beginning. We wanted to do a retreat, and here we thought...
I cried.
She did. And here we thought we'd have to go away and do this, and we don't. You know, we've created that space now that, you know, they're half-day retreats, and there is, you know, they have been so well received. We're calling them suburban retreats. Because it is exactly that. It's a retreat right on your doorstep, and, you know, you come in again. It's that whole, you know, I want women to visualize stepping in, opening that door, and then this is my time. Unapologetically, this is my time. And look, they've been really well received. There's a lot of interest there, which is great. And we hear too, you know, women say, oh, you know, I don't really want to go away on a retreat with other people I don't know. I don't get to go away with my friends or my family. So this has really been a nice sort of, different way to do a retreat.
Love it. I absolutely love it. I just think what you girls are doing is so amazing. This sense of, as you said, there's so many women out there seeking connection, really seeking community, if you like. And, you know, community comes in many different forms. So to spend half a day with other like-minded people, you know, once a month or, you know, even if they do it once a year, it's such a beautiful thing to do for themselves, to say, I'm going to shut the world out just for half a day, which I think is really beautiful. So really what you're doing is building a community as well.
And you know what I love about it too, Sandy, is there's an element of reflection that we have in the retreat at the end after, you know, we've gone through and done some mindfulness. Some of them might have some yoga included. we do some cooking and, just talk about the beautiful food that we can use to nourish our bodies, etc. And then in that reflection at the end, it helps normalise, women tend to share things, after feeling a bit more comfortable through the session. And it just helps normalise to other women in the session that they're not alone going through very similar things that are popping up in that particular woman's day or life and things like that. So I think normalising how you're feeling and not actually feeling like, am I the only one that's going through what I'm going through? It's really powerful. And I think that's one of the most fantastic things about running these retreats and doing it monthly, so women can come along and hopefully feel they want to come along, at month after month and be able to have that connection with other women.
I love that. And to build, for a lot of women too who have felt very isolated through the COVID experience, to come along to a retreat face to face, to meet new people, as I said, like-minded people, that's very powerful, I think, in terms of how we allow ourselves then to take time out. And when we see other people doing that, we feel better about it ourselves.
Very much.
Yeah, we do. We're, whether we realise it or not, we are always modelling behaviour, definitely.
Yeah, and so that's why I love that you ladies are talking about, you're out there talking about perimenopause and menopause support. You're talking about holistic health for women. You're talking about connection and community. I love everything that you are doing, and I am going to put all of the links in our show notes and encourage everybody to check you girls out. If you are not in Melbourne, our gorgeous listeners, and you can't attend one of these retreats, there's a lot of information and beautiful stuff going on the website as well. And that Lisa and Nat are both coaches and can do one-on-one coaching remotely as well. So I don't want you to feel like if you're not in Melbourne, you might miss out on all of this amazing wisdom going on here. Because you girls have been coaching virtually for a very long time now.
I think we're all pros at it now, aren't we, Sandy?
I think we are. I think we are. Tech notwithstanding, but we...
It gets in the way sometimes, but I think it's just put there to test us and just to make us grow through those little problems that pop up.
That's right, and give us those little moments when it drops out that we've just got to breathe, right? Coming back to the mindfulness conversation. I love everything that you girls are doing. I will put this out across all of our socials. We'll be sharing all the links to where you can find more information from Nat and Lisa. You're doing an extraordinary thing. I love that you are doing this, as I said, holistically. So thank you, ladies, for your incredible time and your amazing wisdom today in the confessional.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.